January the 21st, 1981, to the Reverend Joseph W. King, official board members of the First Rock Baptist Church. I'm writing this letter concerning the daycare center or the nursery school that we have previously discussed. We have small children in our membership and community that are ready for early childhood program. We have $1 million church only be used for Sunday service and for special occasions. We have qualified personnel in our membership willing and able to help such a program. We also need an education center in our church for financial reasons. I would like to offer my assistance in getting such a program started to help children look into their future. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, yours in Christ, Acty.
In the early 90s when there was a lot of shootings and stuff. And I would be home and I would hear this and I would freeze in my home, my quiet home up the street. I would freeze and it was like, gosh, this is what kids in the neighborhood who have to go into that environment. And they're going home as latchkey kids, to, I don't know if mom's at home or she's working or whatever, but my heart just went out to these kids. And I remember our late Pastor King used to stand up in the pulpit and say, First Rock, we are a beacon in the light. We are a beacon of light at the corner of Alabama and G. But yet we were not being that beacon of light because we were letting kids go home who we could have given a couple of hours of refuge and safety to and peace to. And we weren't doing it.
As a church, we began in 1957 in a little house around the corner. And 62, we moved to the smaller edifice that faces G Street. And in 1980, this current edifice where we worship was constructed. So think about it. We've come from the smaller church to now this larger building, and this larger sanctuary comes with a larger fellowship hall, which was downstairs. And so just folk looking and imagining what could be done. We've always been a community church. How can we use this to impact the community? And it was the brainchild of one of our members who came up and said, why not a child development center? She looked at everything that was there, and she had the vision, she could see it. And it started there.
The idea came to me to have the daycare at my church, which is First Rock Baptist Church, because I was keeping kids at my home, and I know I could no longer do that because I wasn't licensed to take care of kids. So that's when I talked to pastor of the First Rock Baptist Church, which was Reverend Joseph W. King. And that's when he told me, he said, Ms. Acty, you had to write a letter to the official board and to me. And I did. And I thought about it, asking, letting them know that there was a need for us to have a daycare center because people had to go to work, and to have it at the center, I think too, that a lot of people would like the idea of their children going to the church and having a spiritual education along with regular education.
Getting the center off the ground, I really had not even heard that much about the center. And our pastor, the late Reverend Joseph W. King, just came to me one Sunday after service and he said, Sister, I need you to accompany Miss Acty downtown tomorrow. And I was like, well, what's going on? So he proceeded to tell me he had one of the past trustee board members, Samuel Jordan, And he was here to take us downtown, and we all loaded up like soldiers in our old van and went downtown. And Miss Acty got the process started for getting a daycare center for First Rock.
It really, really, as the saying goes, takes a village. So there were many people in different capacities that really labored to make this happen. I mean, we could go with Trustee Allen, who was the chair of the trustees at that time, Trustee Ronald Brown, and Trustee Rachel McCrae, Deacon George Davis, who was also our treasurer, who certainly played a big part in that. Trustee Samuel Jordan.
I had never worked with a child development center before, and I was anxious to get in there and learn the ins and outs and the role of the daycare center. It was an exciting time for the church because a lot of people didn't want the daycare center there, so we were all excited about taking on the role and doing different things that we could to make it grow. I think it's because it was new. It was something new to them. You know how we are when something new come along, you're sort of afraid to take it on. I think that's what it was because it was something new.
Well, I talked about it. They talked about it. They were interested in helping me with the daycare because they had children of their own, and they wanted, of course, good education for them, and so they were overwhelmed with wanting to work with me with the daycare because they knew that, and people need child care. They had to go to work, but they need child care, and then to be able to say my child went to my church, the First Rock Baptist Church, I think that gave them a idea they want to work with me.
In the beginning, Reverend King selected some of the people to be on the board, and he selected people who worked in the school system. He selected people who worked in different areas to bring their expertise in to the daycare center to help us get established. Ms. Edith Burgess was our first bookkeeper, and she was a government employee who had worked in finance for years. We have Brunel Warren, who was a cook at D.C. Public Schools for years, who helped us with the food. Mrs. Staunton, who was an excellent cook, she had worked at the school system for years. So we had people from different walks of life to come in and help us out in certain areas. And that helped made it much easier.
I met Miss Acty at the church at First Rock. She was babysitter for my oldest daughter, Lavonda, and naturally became babysitter for Shonda before there was a daycare center. I could not have asked for a better person to care for my children. She cared for them just as they were her own.
She did.
Yeah. And I mean, even to the point, I'm getting ready to go to work. I want to drop the kids off. I'm running late. She's running out to the car, grabbing the kids, grabbing Shonda and say, just go ahead, Mom, go ahead, go to work. It meant everything. It made me be more at ease when I knew that I had to go to work, that my child was being well cared for. She was being fed properly. She was being taught not just educationally, but just learning day-to-day things and how to interact with other children. It was extremely important.
Miss Acty was a great leader, a great mother, teacher. She inspired me to move on from starting when I started there as an aide to become a teacher. And from a teacher, she guided me to follow in her footsteps. And she said, this is something somebody needs to do because I'm about ready to give my cards up.
We started out like just almost like a nursery, and now we are like, I see us as a state-of-the-art child development center. and we're doing, we are really preparing children to enter into school. As a matter of fact, when my granddaughter left First Rock, I had the teacher, she went to DuPont Park, Seventh-day Adventist School, and they called and wanted to know where had she gone for daycare because she was so far advanced when she got there.
The church community was really important. I don't know that we could have had a child development center without the support of the community.
Our Christian school eventually became an offset of our Child Development Center. And the idea there was, and of course, that idea the Lord gave to Sister Grace Jones. And understand that education has always been a very important part of the ministry here at First Rock Baptist Church.
Miss Jones, she was my babysitter. I think I was like 6 weeks when I started going to her. And I believe I was there until I was 2. So I pretty much started out, learning from Miss Jones and then transitioning over to the Child Development Center.
Dear Trustee Board, the Christian Education Advisory Committee of the First Rock Baptist Church Nursery School has for the past year consulted with Reverend Lauren Hackett, founder of the Anacostia Bible School, on the establishment of a Christian school here at First Rock Baptist Church. A budget analysis has been prepared by Deaconess Edith Burgess on the feasibility of a Christian school. Therefore, the Christian Education Advisory Committee recommends the establishment of a Christian school under the auspices of First Rock Baptist Church to be located in the church annex, 834 Hilltop Terrace, Southeast. We are hoping that favorable consideration will be given to this recommendation. She worked for the Internal Revenue for 32 years, and when she retired, she didn't know how not to work. So she looked for something that she could do. And she began talking to old co-workers at IRS and letting them know that she would have a daycare center at her house for them, and she would give them a good price on the daycare. She just wanted to be able to be around children. And people began to bring their children, and she would watch them and take care of them, and they would tell other people, and the children, after they got old enough to go to elementary school, they would move on and others would take their place. And word got around, and she eventually found that our house was not big enough for all the children that people wanted to bring. So she looked around and she found a school that let her bring the children there and do an aftercare program with.
Back in 1989, I moved to this neighborhood. I bought my first home right up the street from this church. And my son was 15 months old. We started coming to First Rock. When he was old enough to go to the daycare center downstairs in First Rock, I enrolled him there because, as I said, we started coming to this church. This was our church home. And we were part of this community. This community was now ours. I enrolled my son in the daycare downstairs. Once he got of age to go to kindergarten, and he went to Davis, there was no before and after program in the area. I was fortunate enough that I was surrounded by loving neighbors who took me and my son in, and our next door neighbor, he began to call her Grandma Minor. And my child was in a peaceful, quiet place that I knew that I could go to work and not worry about my child not having a safe place to go. So it was laid on my heart to approach First Rock about establishing a before and after care. And what really encouraged me even the more to do so is that I used to hear the late Pastor King stand in that pulpit and refer to First Rock as that beacon of light that sat at the corner of Alabama and G Street. And it was like, yeah, write the church a letter. But I think before that, if memory served me correctly, Miss Acty was the director of the daycare downstairs. And I believe I approached her about how to go about it. And I remember Miss Acty, Miss Shirley Dunbar, and Miss Louise Hanbury and myself, we would talk about how to get this started. When God gives us a mission, He doesn't give everyone the vision that He gives you. He don't give you the same vision He gives me. But there is something that is required of all of us. And if we truly have a heart for God and the people of God, and we call ourselves the people of God, we're going to do it because He's not going to let us rest.
We have had some serious challenges over the years, and without a doubt, the greatest challenges were the water main breaks. But I've certainly learned that nothing worthwhile comes that easy. So it's been a labor of love, but it has certainly been a labor. One of the greatest challenges that we faced was indeed when the water main broke.
We had one big major flood that closed us down.
If you know the area, there's a hill. And we're like at the foot of the hill, and a water main broke right at the top of that hill, and just all kinds of water just flowed down that hill, and flooded the Child Development Center, because the Child Development Center was built on the bottom floor of our seniors building. Because we were learning about this concept of intergenerational ministry, and that was the idea. So seniors who would be able to look out their windows and see children, and even volunteer. Some of them volunteered and otherwise. And so here at the bottom of the seniors building, we have our Child Development Center, state of the art, and very proud. And all this water comes gushing in, and I have learned that there is no more destructive force in nature than water. And it created havoc. It was awful, to the point where we actually had to temporarily relocate. It hurt us financially. It hurt us, of course, just the physical presence of the building, which had to be redone. And for a while, again, you have your families in turmoil trying to figure out what we're going to do, how. It was pretty devastating.
The city was slow in repairing, and we were out of the building for maybe 6 or 7 months.
Next great challenge, we had a car to actually crash into the side of the building. And that happened there where the side of the building actually faces an alley. And on the other side of the alley are homes, the backyards of some homes, and in that backyard is where a person was parking their cars. Somehow it slipped into gear and rolled into the building, literally crashing through the wall. I mean, it came all the way through. And of course, we had to get the fire department to find out, whether the building was still structurally sound, in particular that area where the kids were. And it was right in the classroom area. And so that was a whole new process. We were able to finally get all of that straight. And thank God there was no serious structural damage. but certainly there was damage to the actual space where the classroom were, which of course was a process in and of itself, getting all of that fixed and maneuvering people while that was being fixed.
The pandemic recently, the COVID pandemic, we had to shut down, and we had to just apply for different grants to keep us afloat, to continue to pay the employees while they were out of work, but they were still receiving income to pay their bills. We participated in the payroll protection program that allowed us to keep everything going. And most recently, I know when I started, we had a huge tax debt, and we were able to apply for the employer retention credit, and that pretty much paid the debt in full, except for a small balance. So we were really thankful for that as well.
Our whole goal in starting the center was to be able to impact those families, beginning with their young children. And as a result, you get the opportunity to be, of course, introduced to their parents and family. And so you begin a connection there because I think they're able to really see our earnest desire to be a blessing and to really help them and do whatever we can to develop their children. And as a result of that, you just create that connection and it goes on and to the point where there are, from one generation to the next, who have been a part of the Child Development Center. And it just does something for me when I run across someone who I'm looking at grown. They say, I was in the Child Development Center.
This community needed that school. It needed the school. It needed the God structure, the family structure, home cooked meals, and not, oh, I'm going to go run to the truck and get X, Y, and Z. They played outside. They did things outside. You know what I mean? Not like you got to go to a playground outside. Now you got to duck. We didn't have that then. So what this area is experiencing with the kids on the playground thing, that Christian school, no, nope. They did not experience any of that. It was a good sense of community and family.
People need child care. They had to go to work, but they need child care. And then to be able to say my child went to my church, the First Rock Baptist Church, I think that gave them an idea they want to work with me.
Those young people who started at our school, when they got to junior high school and high school, they actually were valedictorians and all kinds of awards like that. But their start was right here. And that really was the goal. That's what we really wanted to see happen, to give them a great start to a great future. And the Lord allowed us to do that.
One of my sons passed when he was 6 years old of cancer. And for some reason, it left a void in my life. And I just needed children. I needed something to fill that, which it didn't. It never will fill it. But me having other kids around me made me feel better. And then that's when I've got kids from everywhere then. You know, when you start keeping kids in the neighborhood and everybody know about it, they want you to, then I realized it was just too many for me to have. But that was a motivation because I was lost for a while.
It made me want to cry because I remember how young I was. And I remember just all the challenges and all the ups and downs and the different problems we had. But with the help of God and those people who were really interested, we were able to keep the center open and to continue on to be where we are today.
I believe that early child development and child care centers are extremely important for all children amongst all communities, and a place where it's like family and a place where you can drop your child off and get love and support, and they get their education, and it has deep roots in the community. It doesn't get much better.
I love the daycare, but you know, you got to go along sometime. So, so I did, and but you don't know what it did to me when Michelle called me and said it was 40 years, and I just love and thank God for the energy that I had, the love of children and the love of parents that I had, and I congratulate the First Rock Baptist Nursery School, and I thank God for the opportunity.
I am very proud. It's a milestone, 40 years of excellence, 40 years of a road well traveled, 40 years of hard work, perseverance, and like my mom always said, with the help of the Lord, they made it. So we have come this far by faith, and I know that. We know that. So we're celebrating a joyous time.